blistering birds, death brought forth to the world. Serpent's eyes, always watching you without a trace. Look on and of the snake, succumbing up to your fate. They'll be watching you through shape-shift eyes. It's the Marian disguise by the gods who decree your fate. By the gods who decree your fate.
Back to Lockhorn's Banger TV's weekly metal debate show, live from the Banger Bar. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, reminder that this is indeed a live show that streams every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And for all of you who have been buying our Lockhorn's t-shirts, we want to see some photos. Send them our way. This week, we're doing something very special. It's our first of 2 year in review shows, and this week we're tackling thrash. 2016 was a huge year for thrash. We saw a lot of really impressive records, and to help me with this conversation is my good buddy and musician and local metal expert, Paul Harrington. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Okay, and before I give away too much how we know each other, check this out. Little blast from the past there for you. Look at those flowing locks from Paul Harrington.
I don't even think you saw me in that.
That, of course, was our Burn to Black back in 2008, our last show.
Yeah.
Got any memories from a little moment?
It was a fun time.
A fun time.
It was.
Thanks for doing it with me. Big thrash fan.
Sure.
In a nutshell, tell me what draws you to thrash?
I would say there's something about the speed. I think the speed is probably what draws most people to thrash metal. Just the aggression. You know what? I don't even think it goes any further than that.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of like the percussiveness of it, the rhythm. I really like drumming.
Sure.
And that goes a long way for me. So that aspect of thrash really gets to me.
And I guess, like the other extreme genres of metal, black metal, I mean, they've obviously got that speed too, but
yeah,
there's something different there.
Well, I think, especially with death metal, the tempo varies a lot. It's a lot of stops, a lot of starts. I like it with a groove. I like that it's constant. There's a good flow to it. I think that's what really works for me.
And it retains sort of a little bit of, dare I say, the kind of classic elements. In other words, it's extreme, but you're not losing the plot. Maybe that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good to have you, and always good also to have Lisa Ladisseur with us with the mighty bell. Maybe not so mighty bell. I think that's a New Year's resolution for 2016. Get the proper bell.
Like a gong or
get a gong.
Little weight to it.
Okay, we're gonna work on forging a gong over the Christmas break. And if you hear that bell sound, you guys know the rule. It means that we've gone on too long. I want to give a shout out, of course, as I always do, to everyone that's joining us around the world. One thing that's truly amazing about Lockhorns is that it is a global show. So today we've got people from Finland, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Serbia, Sweden, Spain, Namibia, Brazil, India, Malaysia, Australia, and of course all across America. We've got friends from Texas, Kentucky, California, North and South Carolina, Maine, Ohio, Mississippi, Iowa, Arizona, Little Rhode Island, and Canadians from Saskatoon and Quebec City and Ottawa. Yeah, drive safe out there. It's crazy weather across this country.
Every year, people forget how to drive in winter.
I got an email from Daniel DK, as many of you know, and he was on a 30-hour drive to Winnipeg from Toronto in the middle of a snowstorm, and the heat had gone in the van. So Welcome to the touring realities of being a metal musician in the Great White North. So, okay, we'll get started. The big four. Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax. We've seen records from the big four.
I guess we're sort of grandfathering Slayer in.
Yeah, we're grandfathering Slayer. I think it was September of
Yeah.
2015. We had a record
September
from them. But I think what we're going to get started, of course, the first thrash record from one of the big four, January 22nd, was from Megadeth, and that, of course, was Dystopia. There, we'll get the first record up on the board. Just a quick note, I did give this a review on Overkill Reviews. It appeared on our Best of 2016 January to June show, and actually we've just heard that this album has been nominated for a Grammy for Best Metal Performance. And so before we get into it any further, here's a clip from Megadeth.
If you don't like where we're going, then you won't like what's coming next. What will we look like in the post-American world? Why coward to all those who oppose the American world?
Right, so there we've got a bit of Megadeth for you. Paul, what opinion on Dystopia?
I think the important thing with Dystopia is establishing what is considered thrash now. Like Megadeth, I think is sort of classified as thrash, but through legacy. I mean, you could argue that, or at least I would say that the things that make thrash live up to the genre, Megadeth doesn't really quite fall into that anymore.
Right, yeah.
So it's hard to judge if we're doing this show based on what's a great thrash record.
Right.
I mean, kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, musically, it's really good.
Sure.
I mean, they're a tight band. Like, Kiko is a star.
Sure.
I think that's tricky because Chris Adler, he's not a chameleon. So when he plays on a Megadeth record, he kind of makes it sound like a Lamb of God record.
Sure.
That's something that pulls me away from it.
Sure. I mean, when I reviewed the record, I remember feeling that, it was an album of a lot of leads and a lot of vocals, a lot of Dave, and I wasn't left with the riff, which you could argue is sort of like, if we were to boil it down to like the DNA or the staple of thrash metal, a lot of it hangs on the riff, and I just didn't think it was quite there. But you make a good point that I think not only Megadeth, we'll talk about the album from the other big four this year, that these are older bands, they're dealing with bigger production, and they're not really thrash records anymore.
Yeah, and this one more
Right.
than the other one.
Sure.
It's very mid-paced. It's very sort of the galloping
Yeah.
kick drum.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I
Okay, well, let's go to the board and see what everyone has to say about Dystopia. We know that there's a lot of Megadeth fans out there. Megadeth fans are Megadeth fans, if you know what I mean. So here we go. Scumlicious says that Megadeth had the best album of Big Four. Okay, Mick Carey says Kiko rules. We won't do that. Valdas says out of the Big Four, for me, Megadeth album last. Okay, and then we've got Dark 67 agrees with us, thinking that they're cool, but it's not thrash. And Kevin at Metallica on Twitter says that Megadeth's album was great, but was only half a thrash album. And we've also got Austin Hornbeck saying that Megadeth is my favorite. I don't think the new Metallica is thrash. It is just a heavy metal record, and a great one at that. And FM says that, let's be honest, Megadeth kicked their last album's ass. They deserve the best comeback award. So, I mean, yeah, we're talking...
But a Best Comeback Award doesn't make for a great thrash record.
Right, so we are talking about thrash today. So the Megadeth album is kind of straddling the boundary. Okay. The second big thrash album to be released from the Big Four this year was on February 26th from Anthrax, And here we go. Here's a clip from Anthrax.
You made the second that you choose to force my will. An extension of my hand with the intent to kill. You always have the chance to do the right thing until the right thing comes undone. With a thunderclap, I'm breathing lightning. This world has moved on.
So, a little taste of Anthrax there. I mean, and just a bit of a recap for me, back in February, I gave it a 3.5 out of 4. I also appeared in our Best of 2016 January to June show. Billboard put it number 1 on Hard Rock Albums chart, number 9 on the top 200 albums best chart, and best chart performance in 20 years since Sound of White Noise. Now, for me, I remember my first impressions of this record was that it was actually a pretty strong record.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
This one, I mean, it's sort of a step up in terms of thrash-ness, to
Yeah.
use kind of a dumb word,
Yeah.
to the Megadeth, in the sense that at least half of it, if not maybe a bit less, actually sounds like thrash music. It's up-tempo.
Yeah.
Benante is really good.
Yeah.
And it's funny because these two bands, like Megadeth and Anthrax, they're sort of revitalizing themselves.
Totally.
Megadeth, like Dave brings in Chris Adler.
Yeah.
He's changing the lineup.
Yep.
Anthrax brings in John Donay from Shadows Fall.
Yeah.
So they're kind of refurbishing
Yeah.
things a bit.
Yeah. Modernizing.
And
yeah.
I mean, this, if you're putting out like a Bill's movie and you got like a good montage or like a closing credits, it's like, this is great for that. It's like Breathing Lightning
Yeah.
is an awesome song.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there are some real highlights on this record.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I listened to it again in preparation for today's show, and we were talking about this before we went live. It's another big sounding record. I mean, these are not the lean and mean thrash records we remember from the 80s and the 90s. And at that point, like, there's a certain grandiosity to the Anthrax. Big vocal melodies, big production, massive guitar solos, and so it seems though, again, some of the legends they're kind of going for the brass ring a bit. Yes, Lisa.
People do not like this record, or they don't think it's a thrash record.
Okay.
Pretty
fair enough.
unanimous
Well,
about
maybe
that.
more than that.
I don't know. We got the internet.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to the board then. Chris Robbins. Anthrax has gotten away from thrash and is more traditional heavy metal. It's true. It had like a power metal vibe to it. I remember Manuel Clavijo says that this album is not thrash. And Leon Trujillo said that Anthrax would be under traditional metal, nothing thrash about that album at all. And Brian Alvarez says Anthrax released that least thrashy album of the thrash bands. I don't know. I think
that's not true at
I don't
all.
know.
I mean,
I think I'd agree with Paul. There's a lot more speed and sort of thrash sensibility in the riffing here.
In the
I think.
traditional sense of the word thrash,
Yeah.
this isn't really a thrash record.
Right.
But at least it's got some up-tempo. It's got a little more heaviness to it. For me, at least.
Right, yeah. So there you go. We will move on from Anthrax and move into perhaps the obvious and last of the big four that we're going to talk about, and that's Metallica Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which was released on November 18th. Here's a clip from that record.
Come unto me, and you will feel perfection. Come unto me, and dedicate. Come unto me, you'll never feel rejection. Come unto me, and terminate. Remove your heart, it's only good for bleeding. Bleeding through your fragile skin. Remove your thought, 'cause it's only for deceiving. Deceiving thoughts destroy within. Disappear like man will never hear. I'm a machine.
go. Big track from probably the biggest metal release in the last decade, if not longer. I gave this 2.5, a 2.5 out of 5 on Overkill Reviews. This is their 6th #1 album for Metallica, and the Grammy nomination notably for Best Rock Song for Hardwired, notably not metal. Okay, weigh in, Paul Harrington, on Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
I mean, this is sound way worse than I mean it to sound. It's like how people say Revenge of the Sith is the best of the Star Wars prequels, but it's not a good movie. Like, saying that this is the best stuff Metallica's put out in over 20 years is not wrong. But it's not great. It's way too long. The songs, I mean, a 77-minute record, I just don't think they have it in them. And the songs are too long, the album's too long. The stuff that's good is pretty good.
Yeah.
James is on it. He's awesome on it. But it's just, it's great to be kind of like, oh yeah, you know, Metallica could sound pretty good these days. But compared to the other stuff that's out there, not living up.
That's right. You know, and for me, Lisa, I want everyone to know, wrote in my notes, is it still 2.5, Sam? Yes, it's still 2.5, and I stand by it. There are 3, maybe 4 songs on this record that are probably the best songs that this band has done in 25 years. That's my opinion.
But look what you're comparing it to.
That's just 3 or 4 songs. Yeah. The rest of the record just doesn't stack up. And when you create 3 songs that are that good, it sets the expectation for the rest of the record. And to Paul's point, and I talked about this on the review, when you're comparing it to all the other thrash and metal that's getting created today, the competition is pretty damn stiff in the world of metal today. So still 2.5. I was at the Toronto show and I loved it just as much as everyone else. But you know, this is about albums and this is about bands that are creating good records. And on that note, I stand by 2.5.
Well, Darren Falconbury says, yeah, there's only 4 good songs. I'll take it.
Right.
You know what? That's a fair point, because I will defend a lot of records where half the songs on it are awesome.
Yeah.
But it's so long.
It's so long.
You just get bogged down after a while. Like, you know, 5 songs can make for a great record, but when it's 2 albums, almost 80 minutes long.
And maybe, just maybe, Spit Out the Bone is the thrash song of the year. Willing to entertain that idea at least. But let's go to the board and see what everyone has to say about the Metallica record. Here we go. Randy Petrie. Here we go. Best album since the Black Album. Okay. Lars stepped up. Great. Spit Out the Bone is one of the best songs in years. Rob's distorted bass nod to Burton was awesome. Don't dispute that. I can't get Hardwired to Self-Destruct songs out of my head. Just a very solid album overall. Funny reading all the Metallica Sucks Now comments. Proof people are still jaded after all these years and can't let go of the 80s version of the band. Now, just want to say, Randy, I'm not sure that's entirely true, because I think that a lot of Metallica fans are also big metal fans. And I think for Metallica fans that are metal fans, this album is not really stacking up.
Yeah.
If the Metallica record if Metallica is the heaviest band you listen to,
it's
Metallica is the most metal
to.
band you listen to, then I can totally see why Hardwired rules.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to keep in mind. Yes.
I think that they just have so many millions of fans. The percentage of people who is still going to equal more than a lot of the other records that we're talking about.
Right, and fair enough. I mean, and they won the lion's share of those fans with the Black Album, and fans of the Black Album are going to love Hardwired. Yes, I'm still grumpy and curmudgeon, but I stand by my opinions. 021 Sweden. It took Metallica 8 years to write and put out a steaming pile of shit. I didn't say that. So I was thinking, what if we give them 16 years, then maybe at least they'll give a decent album. My humble opinion is that within the next 2 years, Metallica should just put an album that's 30 minutes long.
Hey, that's exactly what I said
songs.
to you when they released it.
That's what they should do. That would be amazing. Lisa.
I think you should get your pen out, and I think we should start a sidebar about songs.
Okay.
Because everyone wants to talk about Spit Out the Bone.
Okay.
Kind of deserves like a special commendation, I think.
Okay, well, we're getting into the songs, which is interesting. Are you know, Spit Out the Bone. Are people going to be bringing up songs from other records? I don't know.
They haven't
And I
yet.
think that maybe speaks to this album more than it does the song, because the song is such a standout thrash track and is the runaway. Every person we asked in that lineup going into that Toronto show was like, I want them to play Spit Out the Bone.
And they didn't.
And they did, because they all want us to come to the tour. Horror Master, if we're going to discuss the best thrash song of 2016, Spit Out the Bone takes the spot. Fair enough. Chips96, Triple I says, totally agree with Horror Master. Spit Out the Bone fucking slays. No disagreement here. Metal thrashing mad. Hardwired isn't a terribly strong album, but Spit Out the Bone is the song of the year and gets my blood flowing in a way modern thrash doesn't often do. And this was my point. This is what this band is capable of doing. So I think it depends on where we stand on the divide, but I would love to hear more from the band as well. We've got more from the board, I think, Lisa.
I just liked this exchange.
Oh,
I think
okay.
like it's a little nasty, but it's the internet,
well-
and we're Lockhorns, so this might be collectively the comment of the week from me.
It's Metallica. Here we go. Vikinger Family said Metallica died with Burton. Artur Felipe Castana, Metallica died with Load. 021 Sweden, Metallica died with Cliff. John B, Metallica died with the Black Album.
And I think this decision now is dead, and
I
we
think
move
we
on.
just killed the Metallica conversation. Okay, we're going to move on to my favorite. Is that right, Lisa? We're going to do my favorite album?
Sam's choice.
I get my choice. Okay.
A shock and surprise.
I get a choice for once. So here we go. I spent a lot of time listening to the records of this year, and I think there were a few that were real. There were 2 or 3 that were real standouts to me, but I wanted to give a nod to a band that I don't think gets quite enough respect because they get overshadowed by a lot of their fellow Bay Area compatriots, and that is Death Angel. I think The Evil Divide is a really strong record, and you know, after listening to it again, it just had a leanness to it. It had a real, there's so many great ideas in this song, great in this album, so much great playing, great bass playing, a lot of things I like out of good metal, that I just felt that this was an album that kind of got a little overlooked, and frankly, I only gave it 3 out of 4 stars when I reviewed earlier this year, but after the passing of a few more months, it's kind of really stood up for me. What do you think about that record, Paul?
I wouldn't even really have much to add to what you said. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really good. It's a really good thrash record.
Yeah.
It's not like the top of what I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking anything away from it.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
got
an awesome record.
and maybe why I was drawn to it was sort of more in sort of the spirit and the sound of it, that it was like it sounded hungry. It didn't have this big kind of, dare I say, somewhat bloated production with the bass drums. Like you can't hear anything around the bass drums, and there was real attack in the guitars. And I will add, I think next to maybe Hetfield, Mark Osegueda is a fantastic vocalist, and I think he just really cuts through in a way. I mean, he sounds like he's in his 20s. I just think he's an amazing vocalist.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, you know, they've just kept at it so hard
Totally.
for so long.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
really earned it, you know?
Yeah, and I guess I just appreciated that there was a simplicity to it. There wasn't a pretense that we're going to have massive sweep-picking guitar solos, and then
Well,
we're going
they
to have
know
these
what they're good at.
Yeah, I had more of a hardcore vibe. I'm not really the biggest hardcore fan on the planet, but I liked the spirit of it. Do I have anybody that agrees with me out there, Lisa, on Death Angel?
Quite a few.
Oh, good.
No.
Here we go. As Paul groans in the background. CMC Moth into Flame. Okay, here we go. Angel. Longer. I say the best thrash metal song this year is Lost by Death Angel from the album The Evil Divide, which has kick-ass vocals, amazing guitar solos, moments, and amazing lyrics. Dr. Gebemol, Moth into Flame, best song, Ron Record. Jeremiah, Death Angel's Evil Divide. Weird as it is, this album introduced me to them since I first heard The Moth.
Yeah,
Not Moth into Flame, but a lot of moths this year in thrash. It's the definition of pure thrash metal, and most importantly, who the band is. Feast on Metal Os. It says that Death Angel just kicks you in the ball with a fistful of metal. And And no one would say they like that except a metalhead. It's only in metal that's a good thing. So there you go. Do we want to play a clip from Death Angel, Lisa, or do we want to move on? I realize I kind of just...
You kind of missed the clip.
I kind of missed the clip. That's all right. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Moving on from Death Angel.
Live TV.
Live TV.
Live TV.
Here we go. You get a pick, my friend. What is your
Out of the
thrash pick? No.
overall,
Overall.
I would say, I mean, again, to make this clear, I'm not saying this is the best thrash record of the year. I'm saying it is my personal thrash record of the year. And it's got to be Witchery.
Yeah. So tell me about Witchery, and talk about Witchery, because I think that there's not a lot of people out there, sadly, who may know this band.
Well, I mean, I would say the stepping stone for Witchery may be The Haunted.
Yeah.
For people who don't know Witchery, because Jensen, who's the primary songwriter for Witchery, is also heavily involved in The Haunted.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing, like, this may sort of cross more into the melodic death metal,
Blackened thrash.
Blackened
people
thrash.
call it. Yep.
but the thing is, it's got the elements of thrash for me. It's got the upbeat, it's got like the scissor, or whatever
Yeah, that one.
the beat on enough songs. And these are the kind of records, especially like Witchery in his Infernal Majesty's Service, which is the name of the newest one, and Witchkrieg, which is the previous one.
Yeah.
This is what I was pointing to before, where an album can have 4 or 5 really good songs, some other ones that are maybe more forgettable,
Right.
but enough that it's so awesome. It's like this comes on and it's like you're freezing cold, and the most warm thrash blanket just comes right up to your neck.
And
for me,
we were talking about this before. I mean, I think so far this is a very American story. A lot of time gets spent about the Big Four and the Bay Area. People forget, of course, that we have bands from Scandinavia and Germany that have that kind of thrash DNA. And there's just a dirtiness to
there's
it.
a real edge to it.
Especially when I listen to this record up against the Megadeth and Anthrax record, that it has an edge to it.
There's such an immediacy
Yeah.
to the riffing.
Yeah.
The drums are awesome.
Yeah.
They're so proficient musically.
Yeah.
And there's such an aggressiveness that's really, it just grabs you, I find. So no, that works for me.
Full disclosure, Sympathy for the Devil, the earlier record, and the Haunted records. Big inspiration for the formation of the most important thrash metal band in all time, Burn to Black. Yes, Lisa.
I think a lot of people didn't know this record came out or haven't heard it yet.
Right.
Because
It is
it's fairly
brand new.
new, right?
It
It's
is
brand
brand
new.
It's brand new.
It came out like last week.
Okay, we do have some comments on Witchery here. Jamie Laszlo is back. Witchery, in his Infernal Majesty's Service, is one heavy, take no prisoners, beast of an album, no question. Maniac 99. Witchery is more black and thrash, like 666.
Yeah, but you have thrash in there.
Yeah, that's right. And there was thrash before black, so we'll just carry on. Celtic Frost 1979. Witchery is badass, great choice. More black thrash, but still thrash and fucking heavy. James Ward, Witchery fucking slays thrashy with a bit of black metal in there, and it meshes so well. It goes into some doom territory, and it's awesome. Absolutely. If you have not heard Witchery, give him a listen. I am also a big fan as well.
Sam and I will do a review of this record, and we'll both just sit there going, oh.
Yes. Anyway, sorry, Lisa.
While you guys just like bliss out over there, like time, nostalgia trip. There's a big record that came here that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
And I actually got a clip from a colleague of mine who I know is like a big thrash guy.
Okay.
Canadians know him as a broadcaster, guy in a suit and tie on CTV News. Kevin Newman, big metal guy, and we solicited him for Thrash Album of the Year.
Awesome. Here we go.
Hey, so Kevin Newman here. Probably no surprise that a geezer would choose Geezer Thrash as his album of the year. To me, Testament's Brotherhood of the Snake is really about the lessons of age, which is do what you do well, get better and better at it, and keep playing around the edges. They went through the reinvention years, and I think they've just, realized that the best stuff that they ever did was together when they were young. So let's just get together, put the ego bullshit aside, and let's just sing and play our asses off. I gotta say, this album passes my one thrash test, which is that you cannot turn the music up loud enough. There's just not enough volume on any platform. And Stronghold, I think, out of all of them, is the one that wants, me getting my arthritic joints and easily bruised muscles into the pit with the shirtless dudes and throwing my body around. I am too old to do that now. I realize it, but gotta say, Brotherhood of the Snake, I think, is Testament's maybe best album ever.
So never underestimate the news guy in a tie. You listen to that guy talk? He uses metal. Big love for the Testament record. This was a big release this year. I gave it a good review. Paul, weigh in on the Testament record, Brotherhood of the Snake.
So if these guys get the 4th spot at a default, because Slayer was last year out of the big 4, like, way it blows everything else out of the water for the other ones. I mean, it's almost unfair because it is like a super group.
Right.
Like Gene Hoglan.
Yeah.
Steve DiGiorgio.
Yeah.
It's like, penne fingers.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. It's got it has the idea that I like with this.
Yeah.
And has that with it. And you were talking about the American versus whatever.
Yeah.
These are very polished. This has an edge. It's got, again, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a fantastic record. I agree. I think it's not production-wise and sound-wise. It's got elements of the kind of like polished, big American metal, modern metal sound there, but just I think the riffing is just
Chuck
absolutely relentless.
Well, and again, Dolnick is such a monster.
Amazing
and
playing.
Chuck Billy is still so on top of his game.
And that rhythm section and the production was incredible. The leads are incredible. The songwriting was really strong. I mean, I love Formation of Damnation, the first album they came back after Chuck recovered from cancer, and of course they had Bostaff on drums. I thought that was a fantastic record. I actually never thought that they would meet or top that, but I think they've done it with Brotherhood of the Snake. Fantastic songwriting. Okay, Lisa, we got the board. We got some love for Testament out there.
Mostly love.
Mostly love.
Mostly love.
Here we go. Warm Brown says, this is the quote of the week. Old farts know what thrash is about. Thank you, Kevin. Todd Strickett, Testament's album is totally killer. Gene Hoglan is definitely a monster behind the kit. I love the new Megadeth and Anthrax, but also Brotherhood of the Snake is totally top notch. Mike Allen agree. No, he doesn't agree. Mike Allen says that Testament are overrated. They were fantastic in the 80s, but have made Souls of Black over and over again for 26 years. Brotherhood of the Snake is average at best. 021 Sweden says, I would say out of the big 4, Testament is the best, and they're not even in the big 4. That says it all on the quality of Megadeth, Metallica, Anthrax, and Slayer in the past few years. Thrash Maniac 99, best album from the old school thrash scene goes to Testament. Brotherhood of the Snake was a phenomenon for the band and showed that old school thrash can adapt to the modern metal scene. And Samir Jarouf says that Testament, Stronghold, Brotherhood of the Snake, and The Pale King are the best thrash songs of 2016, completely rated by the mainstream media. Testament always deserves a place in the big 4. Yeah, big love there for Testament. I don't really have much else to add. I mean, yes, for me, it was Testament, Witchery, and Death Angel, which were the 3 top albums this year, and none of them are considered in the conventional big 4, but doesn't matter. Maybe that's a good thing. Some of these bands are still hungry, and they want to be among the best. Yes.
So we're going to try and pick a number 1 at the end of this show. And it feels like right now Testament's kind of like leading the pack. I don't know if we should like move them to the top of the board.
Maybe. Okay. Let's get some horns locking. We're going to maybe move it up here. We could do a little bit of a reorg. Oh, I love my magnets. Let's shuffle them around. We got Megadeth down there. We got Anthrax down there. No order implied except for the fact that we're going to put Testament at the top. But it's true, in leading up to today's show, we got an overwhelming amount of comments about the Testament record and how much people are loving it.
But you need to leave room towards the top because there is a groundswell of internet support for a record that's not on there yet, and it's Vector.
Vector.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vector released a record earlier this year, May 6th to be exact. Pretty impressive band. Let's go to the comments first, and then Paul and I will dig into it. Okay, here we go. Vector, Stefano Bartolone. The best thrash metal album of the year was Vector's Terminal Redux. Their ability to combine old school thrash with prog was amazing. I know that Voivod started the whole thrash prog thing, but this year Vector simply did it better. Michael Brown, Vector for sure released the best thrash album in 2016. Terminal Redux breaks new ground not only for the band but for the genre. Aiden Parsons, in terms of innovation, best album absolutely has to go to Vector. Dystopia is back with top 5 thrash albums of the year. For me, our Terminal Redux played 5 times in a row. Contender for comment of the year. Pretty funny. Vector in general are a breath of fresh air and thrash. They sound retro but don't sound dated. Their sci-fi theme and technicality give them an edge, and they really build upon early 90s thrash. And Zane Salon, Vector Terminal Redux is so much better than all the other ones by a margin so vast that is barely even a comparison. Paul, what do you think about the Vector record?
I would say, going back to what I said before in terms of this being my personal favorite.
Yeah.
And again, like, Vector isn't even necessarily my style. Like, it's the progressiveness is, it's not really my thing. But it's kind of like almost out of sheer will and ambition.
Yeah, totally.
I can appreciate that it's like they're up and coming. Oh, I mean, they've been around for a while, but not as long as these guys.
Yeah.
Just based on what they and the amount of work they put into it, I would totally be okay with this being the best thrash record of the year.
Yeah, I mean, when I reviewed it, I remember just listening to this thing going, holy shit, how did they create this record? The songs are so dense, there's so much complexity, the songs are quite long, and they're just hammering you with riff after riff, and there's odd time signature changes, and the vocals are sitting that I actually love that vocal. It's like old school Chuck Schuldiner,
really
like that super high, like Robert Benatti of Sacrifice. I really love that vocal style because no one really does that anymore. I mean, my only critique of it from a pure like album criticism perspective was that it was maybe a bit too much in the sense of like I kind of wanted them to just nail it for a moment.
Yeah.
It never really sat for even a second for me, and so I just thought from a songwriting perspective it could have used that. But without question, Vector is probably the most important thrash release of 2016 when we think of younger bands, to your point, bands that are really pushing the sound in a new direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's not traditional in any way.
No,
but it's like you just have to give it its due.
exactly. It's a completely impressive record. There's nothing about this record that isn't impressive. It just sort of tips the scale a little bit too much, trying to kind of over-impress and maybe just focus on the songs a little bit more. Yes, Lisa?
We're coming down to the crunch time.
Okay.
There's some bands that have not been mentioned.
Okay.
People are sort of trying to like sneak in here at the end. So this is an assortment of contenders for the rest of the list.
Okay, let's take a look. Roselle Nicolaj Liano. Pardon the pronunciation. Literally none of these are even decent. Did you even bother checking bands like Deathstorm, Hellbringer, Wild Hunt, Hemotoxin, and Suicide, Ripper, and a whole lot of other lesser known bands that released amazing thrash albums this year?
Yes.
No.
I mean, like Hellbringer,
Yeah.
they're from Australia, and
Yeah.
it's like, if you really want to hear Blood,
Yeah.
that's your band.
Right.
But it's like, I just think, you have to acknowledge that things have to move forward a bit. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good record.
No.
It's a cool record. Ripper, they're a Chilean band, and they're kind of doing the same thing.
Right.
It's kind of old school.
Yep.
I mean, it's cool. Like,
Yep.
I like it, but, it's like I get where Roselle is coming from. But in terms of, we're just acknowledging the bigger stuff. I mean, this stuff's cool.
Yeah, there's other records that will come up inevitably. I think that I've heard this year that are strong records unto their and they're good bands, but I don't think really quite stack up. Here we go. Leonard Reibstein says, I know they're not pure thrash, but Destroyer 666's Wildfire was a ripper. Better than any of these old farts anyway. And X-Sinner says Destroyer 666 absolutely deserves to be on here. While feeling a bit nostalgic, it throws a dark held twist, and I consider it thrash than black metal. We do have a magnet for the Destroyer 666 album. Did you check out this album, Paul? What did you think of this one?
Yeah, like, it's a good band. It's a good record.
Yeah.
That, you know,
A little bit of that.
well, it doesn't, it's not really my taste.
Yeah.
I'll get where it's due. They've been at it for a while.
Sure, for sure.
But it's like, yeah, it's a cool record.
But as a point, I mean, I think we're here not to ignore the less popular bands. I think the point we're making about a band like Testament is here is a band that has actually been around for a long time and found a way to actually innovate, improve,
Stay fresh.
stay fresh, which just as much as a younger band deserves to be recognized, an older band deserves to be recognized for that as well. Because as Lars Ulrich once said, it's harder to stay successful than to become successful. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Steven Satanas adds, Sodom, Decision Day, should be the only contender for #1 thrash album of 2016. I like this record, Decision Day. Again, classic Sodom. I love Angel Ripper. I love this band. I've listened to this band for a long time. It's in this kinship. It's got that dirtiness of destruction and the more European thrash, which really deep down, I think I gravitate towards a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old, reliable German thrash.
And there you go. But was it really sort of stepping up a notch compared to what they've done in the past? Not so sure.
Yeah.
Solid record. Skeletrex says Sodom. He. 1233 says put Sodom on the board. Blood Tracuted. Cute. Mayhem 72 says Sodom, Decision Day. And I think we've got something new here, Lisa.
Yeah, there's more.
There's more. Here we go. Rafael Furtado Pinheiro. Agony from Nervosa is definitely on my list. I think the girls of Nervosa have been showing that they can deliver some real thrash, although they need to evolve in some aspects. Agony is definitely a consistent thrash release in 2016. If you're really into thrash, you won't regret. Yeah, I reviewed this album earlier this year. It's a solid record. Daniel Williams, operator extraordinaire, is nodding to his Brazilian sisters out there. I don't know if you heard the Nervosa record.
Did not hear.
No, it was a solid for sure from a younger band, and of course it was good to see an all-female band play some really quality extreme metal. Moving on, Roots In. Hobbs Angel of Death made an album that's up there with Testaments. That's a name I haven't heard. Check it out. And Scum Malicious Suicidal Tendencies was the surprise album of the year. World Gone Mad is fucking incredible. The crunch of the music is perfect, and Dave Lombardo on drums. Enough said. I ran out of time this year. Did you listen to the Suicidal record?
There's been a lot of comments about that one, actually.
Okay, the Suicidal record, we got to get up here. I'm just going to put up ST for short. We all know what that means. It's not a song, it's a band. Lisa, where do we go from here?
Well, you need to hash out the #1.
Okay.
And then you talk about where thrash is going from here.
Okay. The #1. I mean, building on the kind of sense of consensus leading up to today and given our conversation, I think it's fair to say that Testament might be the #1 thrash album of 2016.
That's not what I was expecting you to say.
No?
I thought you were going to say The Vector.
No. I think Testament's Brotherhood of the Snake is probably got all of the elements that we've been talking about on the episode. The songwriting, the musicianship, the production, while not being, it's big. It is a monstrous production. Not so big that it kind of gets away in the kind of thrashiness of the sound. But is that fair to say that Testament is #1?
I don't know. Take a look at the live chat as it's going. It's
Whoa,
a bit neck and neck.
Okay, let's go.
It's a bit neck and neck.
Vector, Testament, Vector, Sodom, Testament, Vector, Testament, Evocation, Testament. No one said Destruction. We've got a magnet. What's going on? Vector, Testament. Sam is right. Thank you. Vector, Testament.
It's like 50.
Got some. Maybe we need the crown. Paul, what do you think?
You can't share the crown.
You can't share the crown?
No.
The crown cannot be shared?
You can't sit on the fence. I mean, I totally understand why anybody would want this.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
It's like this is like more pure thrash than this.
Yeah.
But it's like these guys have had their time.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're not, like, they're still relevant, they're still doing it. But I just think rewarding an up-and-comer is far better.
What do we got going? Vector, Megadeth, Destruction, Testament, Vector. In the spirit of diplomacy, in the spirit of my good friend Paul Harrington, and in the spirit of moving metal forward and honoring the people that are pushing the music in new directions and reminding everyone that metal is alive and well and has a lot of gas in the tank, we're going to give the crown to Vector. And I hope that makes some people happy in internet land.
Some people that were sad that we didn't play the clip, so maybe we can go out on the Vector clip when we're finished the show.
Okay. So Vector, we're declaring Vector officially the winner of the Thrash Album of the Year. The future. Maybe this is a good way to think the future. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, where do you see things going, Paul?
I mean, it's funny, sort of just to have a digression from that.
Yeah.
But sort of related. It's interesting because this year was a real, like, it was like, you know, rising from the pile of leather jackets in the corner. It was like Sodom, Destruction, Testament, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Death Angel. Like, they all came back, and sort of all these old guys said, we're still here. We're still really good at this.
Yeah.
Which was a really cool thing to happen.
For sure. For sure.
As far as where it's going, I don't know. I mean, this is really unique. I don't know if this, like, I can't say that this is where thrash is going to go.
Right.
I just think thrash isn't something that necessarily really needs to evolve. As long as it's, like, you know, kind of whatever you're into, right? If it sounds cool and it sort of suits your tastes, then just get into it.
I mean, like we talked on most of the episodes of Lock Horns, I mean, as metal moves forward, we're seeing so many elements crossing over into one another, right? We've got black and thrash metal. We've got all these sort of sub-genres in the music. So we could argue, you know, that's where it's going to continue to go. And Vector is just sort of like the canary in the coal mine, if you will, kind of giving an indication of the places that thrash can go, you know, and obviously retain, like, gain a following and a lot of, like, and musicianship.
I mean, but they are the exception, I think. They're not the rule. They are very different.
I mean, where do I see it going? I mean, I don't see any bands going away anytime soon. I mean, if there's any takeaway from what you're just saying, I mean, I think Death Angel and Testament have put out their best albums in probably the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So who's to say? I mean, the Witchery album is great. Who knows where we'll see Metallica go? Megadeth, Anthrax, don't really know. But I think that at least there's a sense here, as you were saying, that some of these older bands still have a lot to say. And I think that's promising. So there you go, Lisa. Are we happy? Did we do it?
We're happy for now. We got to do it again next week.
Okay, so thanks for joining us on Lock Horns for the Best of Thrash 2016. Thank you, kind sir. Thanks for your thoughts. And off camera, we've got Daniel, Craig, and Aaron. Thank you, Lisa. Follow us on Apple Music. Back next week for the final Lock Horns of 2016. And I'm going to do all metal albums in review. And if you want to watch it live, that's December 14th, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. See you next week on Lock Horns. Thanks for coming.
I am in the radar strike. The light is blessed with the end of the time.